Hello, it's Maggie Farah back again, and welcome to this second video as a SIP, which is looking at you and your role. And in the April event, following the conversation with Deb, which was video 1, we then had a discussion about the role of the SIP. And we asked, what's unique about your role? What value do you add to the work of EAS through your role as serving leaders? How do you create a culture of continuous improvement across the region? How do you use your role as a school leader to understand more fully how you communicate the impact of the work you're doing and help the school leaders you're working with to communicate their impact well? And we used a question. We had a question that we used to start this conversation on table. So I'm going to just share my screen with you for a moment and have a little look at that. Okay. All right. So here's the question that we asked in italics, just about 2/3 of the way down the slide there. We asked ourselves and each other, what is it that only you or that only I can achieve in this role? And if I don't achieve it, the schools that I and EAS serve will be less effective as a result. In other words, how can you use the uniqueness of your role as a serving school leader to be a really powerful, effective, supportive SIP, and at the same time help EAS to achieve their ambition in terms of the school improvement approach that they're taking? So we asked those who were there, and you're going to meet them in July, to think both about what they do and how they do it. So I suggest you just pause this video for a moment now and think about what you would say in answer to that question. What is it only you can do? What is it only you can bring to the role of the SIP? And if you don't bring it, both in what you do and how you do it, then schools and the EAS that you serve will be less effective as a result. So pause the video now. So I'm going to go on to what a number of the serving SIPs who were in this conversation said. And you can check in with that in a moment when you wish to, and see how much that matches up with what you said. So this is what a summary really of what many of them said. And I'm sure you've got some of this as well. So what you bring to the role, they've said, well, we understand the experience of leading a school day to day. We're aware of the day-to-day pressures. We know what's going on in schools and where the pinch points are, what's going on now at this point in July, for example, for school leaders. And we're very aware of that. So we bring a kind of empathy that's drawn and born from deep experience. We're experiencing the same as you. Many of them said, look, we're passionate about being a school leader and we're passionate about being a SIP. So actually, this just means that we bring both the importance of these roles and the passion that we have for them to the conversation. It's not about us. It's not about us. It's about the role that we do. Many of them also mention the significant knowledge and experience you bring, which has been learned over time on the job. So you're aware that the journey into being an effective leader doesn't happen overnight, but it is a journey. And almost all of it you learn on the job. And that's not to say, and people were very clear about this, that we're going to hand over in buckets our knowledge and experience. We're going to spend time talking about our school with the assumption if everyone did what I'm doing in my school, all would be well, because we know that's not true. Context is significantly important. But they talked about being able to weave in their own knowledge and experience as seemed appropriate in the conversations. They said that they will be able to give supportive challenge as equals. There's not as much of a power dynamic between the school leader and the SIP, and therefore that challenge can feel perhaps more supportive. And also the fact that these are their peers. So they want the experience of working with schools to be very relational, built on a relationship of trust and understanding. And because you as a SIP also have a SIP, this was seen as quite unique, and these sort of messages that I want to do unto others as a SIP, as I would want to be done to. And I know we're not doing to, but it's quite a nice phrase. So both having a challenge and a support relationship, and you know what you want from your SIP, and that sense that, you know, you set the bar high and you also want to be able to meet that bar when being a SIP for others. And then earlier on. So that's what they said they bring to the role. And then asked, how will you enact the role? You'll see that much of this relates to what I said earlier, that it's not a telling or an advisory role, but a listening, sharing, developing, synthesizing, analyzing, because of course the impact story, what the school has been working on to improve and where they are now, and the data, both big data in terms of case studies and stories, and the smaller the big data in terms of numbers and data that you're collecting all the time, and the small data in terms of stories and case studies are really important, and making sure that that is then translated onto the form so it can be used by the team at EAS to summarise and share that with the local authority and others looking at the improvement across the EAS region. They also said that they'll enact the role with humility, saying, well, there's much I don't know either. I'm learning as a leader. And that's an important stance to take in these conversations. We talked a lot, particularly when we went on to the session on nuance, which I'll share with you a bit later on, that asking questions from a stance of curiosity, so they don't sound like interrogation, like we're coming with assumptions, we're coming to ask questions to try to trip you up or find you out. Absolutely not. So the way in which we embody, I'm wondering about, can you help me understand more about, would you like to share with me? Those sorts of invitational approaches, the SIPs who were there felt were really important. And non-judgmental, we're all improving. So a shared understanding of issues, coming to a shared understanding of issues that need to be addressed together. And then that sense I mentioned before, I also have a SIP, I know how I want this relationship to feel, and will endeavour to create that trusting, open relationship as a SIP. So that's video 2, you and your role. What unique skills and approaches and understanding do you bring because you're a serving leader? And also, how will you uniquely enact that role? So the head teachers are able to move into a position where the conversation with the SIP is never about proving anything, but it's always about improving. So thank you for listening to this short video recording number 2.